All right, 17 minutes to the top of the hour. A very warm welcome to those who are just joining us. It's always a pleasure to have all hands on deck here on Morning at NTV. For those that have been with us, many thanks. And we are going into the Take Note segment of our discussions this morning. And we shall be talking Empuumo Marathon that is being organized to raise awareness on HIV/AIDS. I'll be introducing my guest very shortly, but let me just give you a preamble to the discussion. It's on the backdrop of the fact that HIV/AIDS prevalence across the country is continuing to alarm people who are intervening and all stakeholders. The region Sub-Western is particularly concerning because a lot of industrial and commercial activity is beginning to take root, and the Uganda AIDS Commission is afraid that as people continue to position themselves for the oil and gas industry transformation, maybe things could become a little bit worse. Fort Portal alone as a city is put at 5.1% in terms of prevalence, and that is a bit disconcerting. Joining me on set is the Executive Director of the Initiative for Better Health, Mr. John Kateba Aturinde, who is the lead organizer of the Empuumo Marathon that is raising awareness on HIV/AIDS. Many thanks for joining us. The Empuumo Marathon is the latest in a series of interventions by stakeholders to raise awareness on HIV/AIDS. But before we go into the marathon proper, what is the Initiative for Better Health?
Thank you so much, Chris. The Initiative for Better Health is a non-government organization that works mainly to promote livelihoods for health. So as an organization, we were established in 2015, and we work across the country.
Across the country?
Yes.
Okay. So in light of the upcoming Empuumo Marathon and what you intend to achieve, take us through the need for raising more awareness. Of course, we know it's an ongoing process, especially in light of what HIV/AIDS is as a scourge in this country, 42 years after the very first case was registered in Rakai. What is the new approach that you're bringing on board?
Thank you so much. HIV has been on for quite a couple of years, and you know very well that the presidential initiatives on the fight of HIV had been registered successful in this country world over. But then along the way, we as a country we relaxed a little bit. There's been a little bit of laxity in terms of prevention.
That's right.
A lot of stakeholders have been involved, different organizations, you know, NGOs, the government, private sector. But of course, we've reached at a point, maybe because of the interventions in terms of treatment that have been, you know, used by people living with HIV. There have been a lot of laxity in terms of prevention. So, as IBH, and you know, working with the Ministry of Health and Uganda AIDS Commission, we've looked at taking a different approach to change this. So we are organizing a marathon named Empuumo Marathon to bring people on board with the purpose of creating awareness on HIV and AIDS, but also to raise resources for HIV/AIDS interventions. So we believe that when we do the run, a lot of people will, you know, wake up and say, why are people still talking about HIV? What is it that has not been, you know, handled? Recently, I think last week, we were in Ntungamo, where we held a medical camp. And we treated over 1,000 people, tested, treated for different cases. And out of those, we had 152 people who turned up to test for HIV. And we had cases registered, about six cases, which actually means that the prevalence is still very high.
Very high.
And that was actually without, advertising for people to come for the medical camp, meaning that if we had done, we are going to get many more people and possibly would have got more cases. So this calls for everyone's intervention. So this is why we are coming up. We know that there are so many strategies that have been put in place. There is PEP, there is, recently, the government has come up with the injectables. Yeah. A lot of interventions, but we think that as an organization, when we work with different stakeholders, the ministry, the Uganda AIDS Commission, and the general public, the districts, we will be able to create awareness. The young generation doesn't know AIDS. They have heard about HIV, but they don't know that there is AIDS. The difference is HIV leads to those, terrible conditions, which are
degeneration of the body due to immunity being compromised.
Yeah, exactly. So the young generation has not seen that AIDS that we are talking about. And this is what we want. We are now looking at, targeting young people so that they get to know that HIV is dangerous. And our focus is to see that we kick it out by 2030. This actually means that we need to bring everyone on board. We need to go to education institutions, because that's where there are young people who are sexually active, who are vulnerable because of the social pressure, because of the need for materials that they think they can get when they get into relationships with older people. We're looking at targeting the borders, because they are a very big team that have time and some resources to get involved into activities that can jeopardize their health. So as an organization, our focus is now on creating awareness so that people get to know, especially the young generation, they get to know that HIV is as dangerous as it was before. But also make sure that we awaken the general public that there is a need to prevent HIV infection, because what actually motivated us to do this campaign was the new statistics that came out this year in May by Uganda AIDS Commission.
From the Uganda AIDS Commission.
From Uganda AIDS Commission. And we saw that the cities in Uganda are leading in HIV, and that's why we decided to go down to Mbarara so that we target the southwestern. We are running from Mbarara, but we are targeting Ankole and Kigezi sub-regions. Yes.
Okay. Let me, since you're targeting the southwestern, I would like to have an overview of the drivers of infections in this particular region. Of course, many of us know you've spoken about the vulnerability that many young girls find themselves in, especially with regard to the need to meet basic needs and the sheer desire for materialistic things that leads them into relationships with older people. But that is not the only section that is affected. We also have young women between the ages of 22 and 32 who are particularly vulnerable because they are emerging as active agents of labor. When you move from one place to another, you begin to shift from one city to the other, looking for employment, that vulnerability also increases, because either you don't move with your spouse, you either leave them in another city, you go to another city, and then whatever happens in between occasions HIV upon some people. What are the drivers for infection that you can, for example, pinpoint in southwestern Uganda as a region you are targeting, away from the ones you've talked about? In my preamble, I talked about the commercialization and the growth of industries in the region. Is that something you're looking at as a very clear pointer to increase in infections?
Yes, of course, urbanization. Development comes with a lot of things. when you look at the current prevalence, is high in cities. What actually brings out this is because there are a lot of activities that take place in cities, which are being driven by the need for employment, as you mentioned, but also because of the different activities that take place. I'm going to cite the example of the youth, the young people. You mentioned about women, but when I talk about the youth, I'm also going to include them.
Including them.
When we are in our campaign that is going on at the moment, we have established that there are a lot of youths who are involved in drug abuse. Others are involved in alcohol. As part of awareness, we've been targeting clubs in the night. We got specific clubs to go and speak about the Empuumo Marathon, but also have a chance to speak about HIV.
And clubs being places, the entertainment spots.
The entertainment areas at night. And you find that there are so many young people, young women, girls, and of course young men, in the company of young men.
Yeah.
And what takes place is a lot of, those activities that might lead them into HIV take place in those bars. So there is that challenge, and that happens in towns, in cities. We have a group of female sex workers in Mbarara that we work with. And of course, they will tell you that the reason they are into sex work is because they are looking for money. So that is why we are doing this campaign as an organization, so that when we raise the funds, then we can put the funds to establish skilling centers. That would minimize, on the question that you had, the concern that you mentioned of, migrating for labor.
Yeah.
People leave their partners to go and look for labor. Look for work. So this would mean that when we established the skilling centers, then we are going to have services, closer to people. Instead of them going far away, then they will stay in those areas, train in different trades of the skills, and then they are able to have work to do, and they don't have to move to different towns, because skills, the technical skills, when they do bakery, they do tailoring, they do hairdressing, they are needed even in small towns, so they don't have to move. So that's one of the control mechanisms that we are looking at, that we think will minimize HIV infections.
All right, let me broaden the discussion slightly on the question of availability of drugs and medicines for HIV/AIDS. I do not know whether it's something you can attribute to the kind of relaxation that the population now grapples with, the availability of these drugs. Increasingly, donations are thinning as the Western powers also face their own challenges. In the case, for example, and God forbid, that these donations are unable to come by, does Uganda, and this is something that should come from your good knowledge as a person that is working in intervening in HIV-related issues, does Uganda have the capacity to manage, especially if these donations continue to dwindle, because that could make things worse? The cost of medicine alone is untenable to the average Ugandan, and many of them that are grappling with the disease and the virus. What is the way forward? Is the conversation tilting towards how availability will be maintained for medicines in case donations continue to dwindle? Is that a conversation you encounter with the various stakeholders you're dealing with?
That is that's a very big challenge that we are anticipating ahead, and this is why we are doing this campaign at this time, to mitigate, so that we kick out the infections. Because if this doesn't happen at the moment, because of the support, there is still support, but as you mentioned, the donors are changing their focus.
Yeah.
They have been supporting HIV. HIV is preventable. You can prevent HIV.
Can prevent it, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So if the question is, why is it not ending? We tried. The government of Uganda tried to kick out malaria using the mosquito nets. I'm going to use this as an example. And it has somehow worked. There are some areas you go and there are no malaria cases. Even when we go to all these medical camps, you do 1,000 people and there's no malaria. There are very few, like 2 or 3 cases out of 1,000. So it means that the campaign is almost successful. But why is it not working for HIV? It means that we need to create more awareness. We need to work hard to see that, you know, this comes to the end. So it is going to be a very big challenge for us as Ugandans when donors pull out the resources. And this is going to happen because they have given us the target of up to 2030. And this is why for us as Empuumo Marathon, as IBH, together with our partners, we are working so hard to see that by 2030 there is no HIV. Because we don't want to be taken into a state of emergency like it was when HIV came. If the donors, and which they are going to do, if they pull out funding for HIV, it means that the government will have no option but to let it go private, for people to start, you know, paying for their drugs.
Paying for those drugs.
And they are going to be very expensive. Already people are struggling to pay for drugs for diabetes, drugs for pressure. And, so if they add on HIV, then it is going to be a very big crisis. This is why we are working so hard as an organization, and this is why we are looking out to different partners. And I would like to thank NTV for coming up to support this campaign. You know, we need to work together to see that we ensure that we kick HIV out, because there is a very big crisis. When you go to the villages, in towns, there is urban poverty somehow, but sometimes it's not very easy to see.
There is a tendency to mask it because you can afford to eat.
You can afford to eat. You can go do some work and you earn some money, and then, but it's quite different from people who are in villages. So it is going to be a very, very big challenge, and we really need to scale up our interventions to see that by 2030 we don't have HIV new cases coming up.
All right. Now, looking at the Empuumo Marathon proper, there must be either a certain price set to the materials that people need for the marathon that they should be able to buy, and these proceeds is what is going to make the greater bulk of resources and how they're going to be rolled out in whatever intervention you are onto. So do you have like rates for the kits for the marathon?
Yes.
Then after that, we also want to know what is the marathon route, so that those who want to be part of it, especially on that day, are able to prepare themselves and get their muscles in shape.
The marathon takes place on Sunday this week, on the 27th in Kacheka, and our chief guest is the First Lady, Mama Janet. So we have made the T-shirt, the kit, with the bag, the hydration bag, and each one goes for 20,000. That is basically the ticket for participation into the marathon. And we'll be running from Kacheka, and then we cover different routes. We have 3 routes. One is for the 5 kilometers, and then another one is for 10 kilometers, and then we have another one for 21 kilometers. So we are running. You might not know the geography very well of Mbarara, but we are targeting places.
Of course, do.
We are targeting places which are highly congested.
Highly congested, yeah.
So because that is where we are taking our message. Our focus is on hotspot areas. This is why we are saying, even when we raise resources, they have to go into those hotspot areas.
Okay. So can you be? I don't want you to put any pressure on any particular population within the geographical area that is Mbarara. What are the hotspots?
The hotspots in Mbarara, we have Chijungu, we have Nyamityobora, we have Kisenyi, we have Ruti, we have Koranoria, those places around. And then there is Kajogo, so those places, those are the places around where we are going to be running.
Okay.
For now.
All right.
But away from that, then of course we have outside, like Ruvindi in Bara district, we have in Ntungamo, there is this place called Rubare, then we have Nyihanga in Ruampara. So those are the areas. And in those places, those specific places, as part of this campaign, we have the pre-event activities that we carry out, the medical camps. We work with different stakeholders.
Those ones come before Sunday? Those
ones come. They have been going on. At the launch which we had in Chijungu in Mbarara City, we had a medical camp that treated over 250 people. And last week we were in Kajara, as I said, in Ntungamo, and we treated over 1,000. So we are going to continue even after the marathon, even on the run itself, on the marathon. We have a medical camp which is going to take place this week, and then after that we are doing until the 1st of December, when we commemorate the World AIDS Day.
World AIDS Day.
Yeah, because all these activities
are in the run-up
feeding, even the marathon itself feeds into the World AIDS Day.
Yes. Okay. So with regard to World AIDS Day, I'm glad you brought that up, which is a very prominent commemorative event across the globe to bring attention to all interventions towards ending HIV. What is being prepared for this year's first December World AIDS Day commemorations?
As an organization, as I said, of course we
must be working with some partners.
Yes, we work with our partners. We continue, of course, working with the Ministry of Health and Uganda AIDS Commission in this. But then we have other partners that have come on board. We have TASO, the AIDS Information Center. And then we have TASO is the AIDS Services Organization. Then we have AIC, the AIDS Information Center, who have joined us. So we're going to be working with them. On the first, we are taking the camp as part of commemorating the World AIDS Day. We are taking it in Isinjiro. So we'll be in Isinjiro to have a medical camp, and we are still looking out for different partners who can join us with the support in terms of test kits, in terms of medicines. And we have this organization, the Life Care Diagnostics, who are supporting us with the self-testing kits. So we are very sure that our participation is going to be very meaningful.
All right, let's take a break, and when we return we shall do a wrap-up. I want some information regarding especially the testing kits and the ability for people to quickly seek medication and how that can be rolled out. I know you're not a targeted scientist or a medic, for example. You do run an NGO, but your good offices allow you to interface with many of these individuals, and most importantly, the information is what causes problems sometimes. So the knowledge gap is important to be fixed. When we return, we shall have that conversation and quickly wrap up on Empuumo Marathon. Do stay with us. Welcome back. I'm glad you're still with us here on our Take Note discussion, where we are talking the Empuumo Marathon that is being organized on Sunday to raise awareness on HIV/AIDS in southwestern Uganda. The gentleman, Mr. John Kateba Aturinde, the Executive Director at the Initiative for Better Health, has been taking us through exactly what the marathon will do, how the rollout will be, how the participants will be running. So we are urging all residents of Mbarara and the surrounding areas to support this initiative and come forth as this intervention goes to the core of national transformation agenda in order to ensure a healthy population. HIV/AIDS is real, it is debilitating, and affects the productivity of our populations across sub-Saharan Africa. It is one of the issues that has kept Africa dragging and staying at the bottom of the economic pyramid across the globe. The population is grappling with this disease. All interventions, instead of going to economic transformative initiatives, is going to treating and of course availing the drugs to people. So if this can be alleviated, eradicated and done away with, then we can channel the resources into economic activity, and that has a ripple down effect in as far as transformation is concerned. Allow me return to Mr. Aturinde, and the question I wanted answered, and which of course will do the wrap for this particular conversation, is the issue of testing. When it comes to testing for HIV, there are people who are afraid of going to the centers that have been put in place for them to access that particular service. But things have been simplified. The self-testing kits are available, not so?
Yes, please.
And the simplicity with which somebody can do the tests themselves. I just want you to talk to the population on that, because they need the confidence to know that you can do it without necessarily falling into the confusion and the stress that testing from a designated place brings.
I definitely like the fact that you mentioned that there is that kind of stress and the confusion that comes along with HIV testing.
A lot of it. Yes,
a lot of it. Many people actually want to test for HIV and also to know their status.
That's right.
But then the challenge is they fear the repercussions when they get to know. And that is where we need to get people prepared, that even when you fear, once you are positive, it's unreversible. So it is important that still people
get to know.
Be firm and get to know their status. I'm going to give you an incident of last week when we were at our medical camp, when we tested people, 152. Some of them did not show up for their results. They tested and then they ran away to
I know
to receive. They didn't receive their results. But of course, for us, we had already captured. So this has got a remedy now. Sometimes people want to test, but they don't want those who have tested them to know that they have HIV.
Interesting.
So now there is this new method that people can test, self-testing kits. You go, you are at home, sit down, relax, and test. Or for those people who are going into like people who do sex work, the NECO, they call them NECO jungle. They can test to know how they are. If people are going to meet them, they can also test themselves to know their status. So the government has already rolled it out through. They also they are working with partners like the Life Care Diagnostics are doing that. The test kits are all over with different institutions like the TASO, the AIC. You go to the government facilities, they are there. So, but I believe not many people know that the test kits are there, the self-test kits are available. So this is where we are coming in as an organization to see that we create this kind of awareness. So that people are aware and they can start to use them. There are, of course, challenges associated with self-test kits, the challenges of counseling, which is part of the information that we should actually go down and give to people so that people can embrace the test kits and they start doing the tests themselves. That would mitigate the challenges of fear, the challenges of stress. Because HIV comes once you have it, but when you have it and you stay positive, it's not a death sentence. You can live with it. Okay. But we would want as much as possible to see that we prevent it. All right. So if a disease is preventable, then why not prevent it? So we are going to be, as part of what we are doing as the marathon, we've got a lot of learnings from the campaigns that we are having. And I know by the end of the week, when we do the run, having some of the unintended outcomes that are coming out, but also the lessons that we are getting from our interventions, then we will have a more proper approach on how we can promote the test kits working